Welcome to the Tarot Tapestry, a weaving of self-discovery, where three tarot mavens put their heads and hearts together to offer their wisdom and insights about the tarot. We hope that you find this helpful in your personal journey to self-discovery and growth.
Join us as we explore ways to use tarot for self-reflection and self-correction.
Together, we'll discover new ways to use tarot to weave threads of understanding into the tapestry of your life.
Hi, everybody. We are taking a break from working our way through the major arcana this week to chat about the recent election results and to share how we're using tarot to weather the current storm we find ourselves in. I am also at this current time going through a Yoga Sutra study with a teacher that I've studied with for several years, Kia Miller, and one of our homework assignment from our last meeting was to talk about how the sutra, and just without getting too overcomplicated, the Yoga Sutras are aphorisms for how to be, advice for how to live a good life, how to be a good human, how to be happy, how to be calm, centered, self-resourced, all the good stuff that yoga can do for you. And Sutra 133, in the translation by Yogi Satchitananda, I'm sorry, I have horrible pronunciation, is by cultivating attitudes of friendliness toward the happy, compassion for the unhappy, delight in the virtuous, and disregard for the wicked, the mind stuff retains its undisturbed calmness. And so I pulled a card for each one of those things. And the thing that at first I journaled a little bit about it, because disregard for the wicked does not mean ignoring the things that are happening around us. It means you decide how you interact with it, if you have to at all. And delight in the virtuous isn't just doing everything you like and not worrying about the rest of it. It means studying, sourcing your insight and inspirations from people and sources that you trust and know to be reliable. So it's not, it can sound a little maybe flip or oversimplified for all of the things that we're dealing with right now. So anyway, it's 4 cards, and I'll say it again. Pull a card for each question. The first one is how to cultivate friendliness for the happy. And think of that as not being trying to deal with any feelings of jealousy you might have. Like, of course, people want other people to be happy. But sometimes you see someone who's happy and you're kind of like, no, I don't like that. Or you want something they have, and rather than just being happy for them, you can kind of fall into churning about what they have and you do not have. A card for cultivating compassion for the unhappy. So anyone who's having a hard time, trying to not necessarily commiserate or go, but just to understand and not to be too judgy. Delight in the virtuous, like I said, just meaning sourcing your insights and inspiration and studying things that matter to you from people that you trust. And a card for cultivating disregard for the wicked. Basically just some advice for what you're going to do when you're confronted by something you disagree with, which I feel like many people are, to varying degrees. So do you guys want to draw cards for that, or you want to talk about what you're doing in your own personal lives first? I know Linda had some things that she wanted to talk about.
Maybe it might be a good idea for us to just start with, we'll work with your spread. And then, because Linda will be talking about the spread that she did and how that has helped her. So maybe we can just take it in different parts, and we'll just work on your spread first. Is that all right
Very
with you,
cool.
Linda?
Oh,
You
I
are
think you're
muted,
muted.
Linda.
Yeah, I muted myself, but yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So are
I
we
Well,
went
doing this
ahead and
card by card,
then
or are we
let me
pulling all
shuffle.
4 cards and then?
however you want to do it, however you do readings for yourself.
I mean, I would
I
love it if we could talk about like each one separately, if that's
Sure.
okay. Like,
Yeah.
okay, perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
The first one I pulled for how to cultivate friendliness toward the happy is I pulled Four of Cups reversed. And to me, that says, if you run across someone who seems to be in a place where they seem a little bit steady, they seem like they found some solid ground, they found their sea legs, they don't feel quite as off balance anymore. Like, don't run up and knock that pentacle out of their hand. You don't know how loose, how hard they've struggled to get where they are. And if you can't say it's kind of like if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. And I'm not talking about, how even when you agree with some people about most big things, sometimes somebody seems to find a little relief in believing something about uh, an event, or that makes them feel more comfortable. And it's not up to us to go, yeah, but listen to this, like right now. If they start to tip over, if this is somebody you love and they start to tip over into Delulu, maybe raise your hand and say, let's talk about this a little bit more. But I think it's that card reversed says to me to let people have what they think they need right now.
And this was a Four
Yeah,
of
that's,
Cups.
Sorry, the Four of Pentacles reversed.
yes, you did say the 4 of Cups.
Oh God, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
It's been
Yes,
a week.
It's been a
I
week.
know. We've
Hmm.
all been feeling it. So, yes, to clarify, it is the 4 of Pentacles reversed.
The Four of Pentacles reversed. The one where the guy is, you know, he's got one on his head and he's got one in his arms and he's got one foot on a pentacle and each foot on a pentacle and he's just kind of holding on and he looks like he's pretty stable and doing okay, but also maybe just recently became that way, stable and okay. So he's maybe a little jumpy about anyone coming for the stability that he's found. And just maybe this is about being kind to me,
You know
I
what?
think.
And I really like that because, when you think of the idea, when I think about the 4 of Pentacles, I think about, people holding on to something, right? Like they just don't want to let it go for whatever their personal reasons are. And in this case being reversed, it's sort of like in some situations, like you were saying, Angie, people are having conversations and somebody is talking about, how they feel or what they think about something. And people like to jump in and say, like you were saying, and then give your own opinion about it, right? So you kind of like hold on to your thoughts and ideas as being like, this is it, this is right, this is how you should think. So that idea of the pentacles and just letting it go. And like you said, just letting it go and saying, you know what? I don't need to interject here. I don't need to give this person my ideas, my beliefs, my thoughts about anything. They're saying what they're saying, and I'm just going to keep quiet and let them do what they need to do. And I think that's beautiful because there are many situations where we need to do that. We need to just zip it and hold on to our own beliefs and thoughts, especially around this whole election, because it's huge, and a lot of people have a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas that they want to share, but some of them don't want to just share them. They want to force them upon you, and, this is one of those situations where it can cause more harm than it can good. And like you said, to maintain happiness, we need to do what the right thing is. It's like doing the next right thing, and I love that.
Well, interestingly enough, I just shuffled and pulled a card, and I got the Two of Pentacles.
Mm,
And the Two of Pentacles is for me always about making a decision, trying to figure out which one, you're kind of juggling. The guy's juggling, he's got his foot off the ground, and it's an infinity thing. So always going to go. It's always going to be a case of that. I think in this particular subject that we're talking about towards people regarding the election, I think the choice here is, for me anyway, if there's somebody that I come across in my dealings with people, and fortunately I'm not out in the public a lot, so I don't come across a lot of people on a daily basis, unlike people who still work for a living, or just are out a lot. But if I were to come across somebody who was basically gloating about the results of the election, I have a choice, and I can engage that person, and probably not be too friendly to them. I can say, oh, okay, and turn around and walk away, which is probably what I would do if I didn't have to be around them for any length of time. Somebody blabbing about the election in the coffee shop, or, what have you. Or just, become very private and very quiet, which I think in the days to come is going to be important. We're not blabbing our business out in front of everybody anymore, because we don't know. And I hate that, but self protection and protection of your circle, whatever it is, your family or your friends or whoever you live around, it's going to become important, because if you know anything about 75 years ago, if you've ever read 1984, if you've ever been in a work environment where tattling was kind of encouraged, that people will do stuff because they want to feel important. They want to feel important. And so I think we have to look very carefully now at our decisions to be friendly, which sucks. I mean, if you're always, or if you're mostly around people that you've known for years, and you talked about the election and you've talked about your political views and blah blah blah, then you're pretty good. But out in the wild, it's just, you have to make those choices. Am I even going to say anything? Is it worth it? First of all, is it worth it for my own mental health? Is it worth it for my own blood pressure? Is it worth it for, what I know is going to turn my face red and make me a raving maniac because I'm so furious, and as soon as I start verbalizing it, it just comes out. And should I just back off and let it go? Because, the FO part, the finding out part for some of these people, I would love to watch it, honestly. I would love to watch it. And I'm not normally vindictive, but for people like this, I'm just waiting. Waiting for their little house of cards to fall down. And honey, I would love to clap. And am I proud of it? No, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty about that, saying, and I love how you say you wish you didn't feel that way, but sometimes we feel a certain way, and that's just it. It's funny because I got the death card when I pulled for this, and God, can I go in so many directions with that one? I guess in relation to the question, right? How to cultivate friendliness towards the happy, right? Cultivate friendliness towards happiness, right? Is that how you say it? Yeah. For me to do that, I think I need to work on accepting change, right? Like, I think that if I hold on to what I wanted, what I thought things should be in the future, my vision of what I thought our future would be like, right? My vision of maybe the progressive nature of our future, of humankind, right? Not just mankind, humankind, right? and all the wonderful things that I thought were going to come about. Especially when you would hear by astrologers the whole idea of Pluto and Aquarius and such. And I guess my mind went towards, oh, maybe this is talking about, you know, future growth of this country in a direction that I prefer to go in. And it turned out to be the complete opposite, right? It turned out to be in a direction that I feel is going backwards. And I don't feel is um, going to maintain the democracy in this country, right? I feel like our democracy will slowly start to crumble and things are going to change. And I have to be understanding that that is what it is. And I can be, and I am, and I have been angry, sad, a little depressed over it. But I think for the betterment of myself, for the betterment of my family, my friends, people around me, my experience at work, anytime I have interactions with others, I think I need to just keep in my head that change is happening and I have to accept it. I don't have to like it, right? We don't have to like the change, but I need to be accepting that things are going to be different. And now, how can I move with that? How can I make sure that I'm still finding ways to make myself happy, doing things for myself, growing spiritually, right? Continuing down the path that I set out for myself. But I'm now going to have to make some changes in the way that I do that. And I have to come to terms with it. And that's kind of that's the message that I'm receiving from this death card.
That's amazing, Kate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
that's very
really
true.
like that. And I wasn't talking about letting the people who are celebrating the fact that they elected someone who thinks that other people deserve fewer rights than they do. I'm talking about people who have discovered a way to kind of calm their anxiety about all of this and find a little equilibrium in the middle of this. Even the good guys can be a little bit judgy about the other good guys and how they find that comfort. So
Yeah, well, that's definitely true.
yeah,
And this is, I mean, yes, we are talking about the election, but the sutra, is talking about in general. And so I think one of the ways to think about it is, sometimes things happen to friends and stuff like, and you are happy for them. You are. I'm happy for any kind of accomplishment that my friends reach, or like you studying your sutras and your journey to sobriety. I mean, I'm happy for all of that. But sometimes things happen to be. And it's just like, why can't when is my turn going to happen for something like that? When is it my turn? And it doesn't mean that I want to in any way dampen what's good for them. I want that. I want good for my friends, and I'm happy. But yeah, sometimes it does spark a little bit of envy or a little bit of poor me. I'm stuck here in this situation and they're having a good time, that kind of thing. And I don't want them not to have a good time, but it's just like I'd like to level up to the same spot. And so I think that, in general, talking about things outside of the election and all that, I think it's more kind of that way, because you want to be, you want to be supportive of people who are happy. You want them to be happy,
Yeah.
It's like, you don't want to bring them down.
Exactly.
Well, that's terrible.
Yeah, and I have to say, Linda, I'm really appreciative that, you shared that part of yourself, with everybody, to be honest, and to be honest now on a podcast and putting that out there for other people to see. Because, if you're not honest with yourself, how do you make changes, right? You can't
Well,
make
and
changes if you're
I
not
don't think
honest.
I've said anything that other people haven't felt. I'm
But
pretty sure.
feeling it and admitting it and saying it out loud, different.
Well,
Mhm.
that's true,
You
but I
put
do
it
think
out there into the
I,
universe. You made it verbal and you were like, this is
yeah,
how I am. I am saying it. There's validity there. And I know that, it may not, be right. I don't want, I'm proud of my friends. I want to be there to
yeah.
support them, but this is how I feel. And that takes a lot, Linda, because not many people would be willing to show that vulnerable side of themselves to
Well, but
others. So I
I
thank you
think
for
it's a
that.
very, I think, thank you, and I appreciate that too. But I do think it's kind of a universal feeling. I think I mean, you know, not everything goes right for everybody all the time. And when you're in a place where things aren't going really good for you, and you have people around you that seem to, be hitting the jackpot every time they turn around in their life, it can bring up those feelings. And um I don't think that's unusual. I think that's kind of a universal feeling. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it
Oh,
doesn't mean that I want everything to turn around and then my friends to have a bad day or have something bad happen to them. Never do I want that. Even for strangers, I don't want that.
yeah, absolutely. All right, shall we
The-
go on to number two? This is good, Angie. I really like
Let
this.
us do
Good.
so.
This is good. Yeah.
The next card was how do I cultivate compassion for the unhappy? And I pulled the 10 of Wands. And what that says to me is when you come across someone or hear of someone who's really trying hard and really overburdened, help them. Don't ask them to stop in their very difficult work to decide what you should do so you can do something and then pat yourself on the head and talk about what a good ally you are. Figure it out. Find ways to support the causes that you believe in. Find ways to use whatever privilege you have to protect people who don't have it, even if you only have a tiny, tiny bit. Don't stop. They don't get to win. They don't get to stop us.
Hmm.
Even the thing is, this country is no more racist and misogynistic on 11/7 than it was on 11/5. The masks are off now. They they have declared, they have decided who to be. And it really is very important for all of us who can, because there are people who can't. So if you can, do. If you can't, that's okay. But do what you can. Everybody, even if that is just in your own house.
Well, 10 of Wands, you said? 10 of Wands?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, that's the guy, for people who aren't familiar with it, it's the person who's carrying these wands, and it looks like they're just got too much. They've got too much. And basically that's what the card is about. Maybe putting down some responsibilities if it's in relation to a job, maybe delegating, that kind of thing. Um, Trying to learn how maybe not to carry so much with you. Um, and I think that's true. And I think in a lot of ways in our local areas, because the whole thing is so overwhelming. But in our local areas, how can if you have a friend who's concerned about resources, or if you have a friend who's just doesn't know, take them to coffee, offer to buy them some groceries, or whatever it is. If you know them, you'll know kind of where they're suffering and where they're lacking, anything like that. Just what can you do to help alleviate that burden? Take one of those rods away,
Yeah.
even for half a day. If you can just sit and have a bitch session, and you feel a little bit lighter because you've had a bitch session and you verbalize some of the stuff that you've been carrying around inside, that can make a big difference, just that.
Mhm.
And even if you're feeling it too, but sometimes you're better able to carry it than other people,
Mhm. And you can, that's some days you'll be the guy with all the wands.
right,
So
exactly.
treat other people the way you would want them to react to seeing you overburdened, overwhelmed? Do you want them to be bothering you? What can I do? What can I do? This makes me think of, I've seen in women's groups, men in women's groups. First of all, come on.
Yeah,
Um,
really.
asking, as a man, what can I do? Well,
As a man,
first of
open your
all,
eyes.
First of all,
Look.
stop asking women to tell you what to do for them. Just fucking do something. Go,
Yeah.
we don't need allies who just want to stand here and nod their heads. Like we all understand the pickle that we're in. If you've got a uterus, you understand. If you don't have a uterus and you don't understand, Google something. Figure it out, kids. Like, we're busy. And I know that I'm certain that people of color, people, LGBTQ plus people who are being asked all the time by, people who look like me, frankly,
Yeah.
white cisgendered women. What can I do? Well,
I don't know. What can you do?
what would you
It's like
do
the
if I was like you? Would you support my businesses? Would you share my links? Would you, whatever you can,
yeah,
like just do something?
right. Do something. Exactly. And that made me think of, y'all know the movie Aliens, right? And so Sigourney Weaver is sort of like stuck with these space marines, and they're doing something, getting ready, and she comes down and she goes, well, what can I do? And the guy goes, they don't like her having her there anyway. They're like, well, what can you do? And she goes, well, I can run one of those loader things. And she gets in, and they're like, all right, do that. So we all can do something. And I know that there's a hesitance when somebody is really unhappy. There's a hesitance to intrude on them. Sometimes there's that. You feel like you're intruding on someone's grief or someone's whatever it is, that why they're unhappy, and you don't want to become another burden. But and sometimes if you know the person well, or if you see the situation, sometimes you can just do something and not ask them, because if you ask somebody what to do, they have to make a decision, and maybe they're not in a position right at that moment to make a decision of anything. For instance, my friend Jenny, who lives in Little Rock, her mother just passed away, and they were expecting it. She had pulmonary fibrosis. She had just turned 90. She was declining. They knew she was going to die. And, so she passed away. She was in a living situation. She was out of her house. And she passed away on like Sunday night, early Monday morning. They had to get everything out of that apartment by Thursday. Okay. So they just went and slammed it into storage. And I told her, I said, and she said, oh, my sister and I are going to do something about it in January. We're just going to wait till January after the holidays. And I said to her, call me. I will come. I will help you, because I know what it's like to have to go through crap. And, I've been downsizing and decluttering. I'll be happy to come, even if I just sit in a room and talk to them while they sort through stuff, and they're like, oh, that's the best idea I've heard yet. So, I'll probably be going to Little Rock in January, and that's fine. But, can't always do something like that. But even if you just go wash dishes, you're in somebody's house and they're doing something and there's dishes in the sink, wash up. Or, bring a meal, get a meal from, a full meal from Cracker Barrel or wherever, and just, that's why people bring food, because people don't have to think about what to eat. It's there in front of them, fixed, ready to go, that kind of stuff. But which is interesting, because I got the 10 of Cups.
Oh.
And to me, this is the 10 of Cups is kind of like, oh, well, we've kind of reached the culmination. We have our family and everything's rainbow and sunny. This is about sharing. In this situation, I think this is about sharing. You can't infuse happiness into someone, but you can share what you have. You can share your time. You can share your energy. You can share even their sadness with them. It's like the story about the little boy who went over to the next door neighbor, the man, he was sitting on a park bench and he was weeping because his wife had died or something. And she went home and his mom said something. He goes, yeah, I know, he was really sad. I just sat next to him and helped him cry.
Hmm.
And sometimes just, somebody acknowledging that, yes, you're sad and it's okay to be sad helps,
Or
because we're
angry.
always supposed to be happy. We're supposed to be
Yeah.
happy all the time. Never be depressed, never be down, just be happy.
There are enough people in this world who have been forced to keep their rage under wraps and like not express it outwardly just to stay safe and alive. So if you can be a place for someone to vent that, that's
Yeah,
good because it's a strong emotion, it's a lot of energy and it has to be felt or it will never go away. But you
right,
have to you have to find a way to do it safely that doesn't
right.
hurt you or anyone else. But
I
it's
mean,
a
we have to keep going. We have to go, and things will keep going. Will they be the
Mhm.
same? No, they're probably going to be a lot harder. They're going to be more expensive. They're going to be blah blah blah, but they will keep going because in the end, there's only 500 or 600 of those people in Washington, and there's 300 million of us out here,
Mhm.
and we live in cities and towns, and we have our local governments, and we have our local spaces, and so we will keep going. We'll manage.
Yeah, beautiful. So as you're both of you were talking about your cards, I was like, oh, because I got the sun. And what you had just said, Linda, about sharing your happiness, your energy, sharing in the sadness, when I look at this card, I love it. I've always seen this card as your power. Like, how do you utilize the power that you have within you?
Mm.
And as a reminder that we are all powerful people and we have power inside of us that we can utilize, right? In this case, to show compassion for people who who are going through things, right? For people who are unhappy. And I think, I also looked at it and I thought of, oh, just shed a little light. Just when somebody is feeling down, just shed a little light. Maybe be the little sunshine, the person who's gonna come over and hug you and make you feel warm, make you feel cared for, make you feel loved, right? That can be amazing for people, you know, and just like, I think about like, my mother and her and I have not had the best of relationships. And it's been very, very hard for many years to understand how to be compassionate with her. And it wasn't until I became sober, many years ago that I finally learned how to do that. And part of it was I was holding back my my strength, my power that I had to deal with the situation because of my own reasons. So, now I have learned to be more compassionate for her and with her, right? I am more willing to understand, kind of how she is and things that she'll do and how that'll affect me. But I still participate in her life because she is my mother and I love her and she needs people to like talk to her, right? People need people. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're
Mm-hmm.
social creatures. You need each other, right? So, to be there for somebody else, even to just share the same energy space with them, and if people, if any of our listeners believe in energy and how energy is transferred to other people and our energy fields, that reminds me of the sun too, right?
Mhm.
So if I have this really good energy going on and somebody else is in my energy sphere, they're going to feel it energetically, and yeah, that's all I got for the sun.
Yeah, the sun gives everything
That's
life. Without
great.
the, without the sun, we don't have anything. And Ten of
Yeah.
Wands also speaks to dealing with our own overwhelm. If you are the one, if you're the guy with all those, wands and you're feeling alone, what can you put down? You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to do it. You can just sit down and take a rest and pick them
Yep.
up in a different order, distribute the weight in a different way, ask for help. So compassion for the unhappy also extends to yourself. And so does friendliness toward the happy. When you're happy, let yourself be happy. You know, it's okay. Don't
And
don't
and I
forget.
and I think too, like, if we're talking about this election and, for those who are feeling disappointed or who may be grieving right now because of the outcome, it's also like a message to maybe not to let yourself dwell in the emotions of it all for too long. Everybody needs time to grieve, right? But to also know and realize again that we are powerful individuals, right? If we're powerful individually, and how powerful can we be in a group, and it's like I don't ever want people to lose sight of the fact that you have power, and how you utilize your power is very important, and giving it conscious thought and thinking about how you want to utilize it is extremely important. And we as humans, we should be there for one another. Our main goal for utilizing our power should be for the betterment of our community, right? For the betterment of the world,
Yeah.
for the betterment of the human race, because that we all share that in common, right? We're all humans on this planet and we all have to live here, and we all have to learn how to get along with one another, and it can be done, but you have to work on it. You have to work on it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so the third card, draw a card to cultivate delight in the virtuous. I pulled the Two of Cups for this one, which I really like because the people who are holding the cups are making constant eye contact. They understand what's in the cups. They're trading cups. They're on the same page. And I think it's so important always, but especially in difficult times, to look for comfort and support from sources that you know are reliable and on your side.
Right.
It's not about, for me, this part isn't so much about uh, going out and finding a brand new way of doing things right now. It is finding where you have steadiness in your life, where you can go to refill your cup, where you can go to have frank and honest conversations, get advice, share how you're feeling, and listen to others about how they're feeling. Not so much a teacher up here, student down here sort of vibe, but we are in this together and together we will figure it out, and we'll do it without abandoning ourselves or each other, even when it's hard. So that is what I got for the third
That
I
was
card.
like that.
beautiful.
I like that.
Beautifully said.
I pulled the star, and
My favorite
um,
card.
really,
My favorite
um,
card in the whole entire deck.
which is really interesting because I was talking about a reading that I had gotten, but I have shared it in a couple of places because for me it was more like I asked the question, but I think it seemed like more of a collective reading. Um, but one of the other people in one of the groups also pulled a star in a very similar reading, and the star is it's a card that comes after the tower. And so the tower is when everything collapses and falls down. And, so I'm sure we're all having a tower moment in the last week. We've had a tower moment. We were hoping we wouldn't have one, but we had one. And so now, here's the star that comes along that says, okay, let's just have a quiet night. Let's be under the starlight. And, we all go out in the full moon and see the full moon, and that's really pretty, and sometimes it's bright enough you can almost read by it. But when you go out in a place that's not really well lit with artificial light. When you go out and like where I was in Texas, which wasn't, under the stars is just, it's really magic. It's really, really magic when you can see the stars and, the constellations and all that. And I also think that the word virtuous sometimes conjures up, I don't want to say negative things, but it's like when you say someone is virtuous in our culture or our
Puritanical.
society, you think of puritanical, you think of someone, who's kind of maybe meh. But to me, I think of somebody who's virtuous as just somebody who does the right thing when the right thing needs to be done. And they're not, look at me, I'm doing the right thing because the right thing needs to be done, applaud me. They just do it because that's how they are, and I think of my friend in Little Rock. She is a Christian, she is a person who I would say is a Christian and who never talks about it, except she talks about being involved with her church, and she majored in music and she loves music and she sings, and her mother was it's handed down through the family. But she is 100% somebody who walks the talk and never preaches, and that's what I think about when I think about virtuous. And it doesn't matter what faith they practice or if they practice no faith. It doesn't matter. That has nothing to do with it. And when I meet somebody like that and get to know them, it is delightful. It's delightful to see somebody who is who they say they are, and they are always like that in any situation. She's not going to change how she behaves if she's in front of, the president of a college versus a homeless person. She's going to be the same person and she's going to act the same way. Protocol, you follow the rules you need to follow, but her basic personality, her basic whatever is not going to change. And those are the people, all of my friends are basically like that, because I don't want to be friends with people who aren't like that.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's what I take for delight. And it's just like, and when I think about it, I am delighted to know people like that. It's just, and I want to be that kind of a person so that I can attract those kind of people to me, and I think that in the long run, when you are like that, people who are not like that will be uncomfortable around you.
Yes.
Because
the trash will take itself out.
The trash will take itself out. Exactly. So
I like that very much.
But again, for me, this is like, yes, find your people and stuff like that, but also for this particular time, allow yourself some space, allow yourself some quiet time, some breathing meditation, some, planning, make lit, whatever, but just let yourself have the time to sort of just get your head around this whole thing and how we're going to go forward.
And I just want to add one thing to that is also, I look at the star as also signifying or symbolizing hope, right? And this idea of don't lose hope. It may seem hopeless right now with everything that's going on, and things are not looking so great for what could possibly happen. But I think like hope is, in my opinion, that one thing that keeps you moving forward, right? It keeps you going. And I believe that if you lose all hope, then that just puts you in a very stagnant place, and there's no room for any kind of growth. There's no room to experience any kind of pleasurable things, or experience good emotions, right? We kind of can keep ourselves very contained to the negativity, and everything is going to be horrible and disgusting. And I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like you can really go very deep, into that rabbit hole. And it's just like, don't lose hope. Like we all have to hold on to hope And that should be something that's like in your head at all times. So whenever you're feeling really down, depressed, upset, and just feeling like, oh, this is all gone to shit and nothing is ever going to, just say hope. You know what I mean? Just kind of like keep that. It's not an easy
Yeah.
thing to do at all. And
No, no, it's
I'm
not.
sitting here saying it because I believe it. And I try my best to do so, but I am by means no expert at it at all. And it is
Well,
not
I
an easy
100% agree
thing.
with you, and I do feel it, and I believe it. Well, I believe it, and I think it's a good thing to do. Feeling it right now is a little difficult, but it will
Mhm.
come. It will
Yeah.
come.
And you
So,
don't have to feel it, right? Because if you're not in a place to feel it at the moment,
yeah,
that's, perfectly fine. Just keep that idea in your head that it's
right,
there.
right.
It's there. That star, that guiding light that you see in the sky, even if you have to look up at the sky and see that one star, if you looked
Mm-hmm.
at that one star and just said to yourself, hope, that's something, it's something.
So, what did you pull, Kate?
I got the Seven of Cups. That's how I feel
Okay,
about this card.
okay.
Um, yeah, so I'm not, I had to look up the exact definition of virtuous because I wasn't quite sure what it meant. And, it's similar to what you were describing, Linda. It said having or showing high moral standards, right? So I started to think about what you were saying, Linda, about people that just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And in my opinion, that's a high moral standard, right? Like
Yeah,
to hold yourself to that standard of doing what is right um is pretty darn important, right? It's pretty and doing it in a humble way, right? Where you're not looking for that
right.
praise
You're
as you
just
do it.
doing
So
it. You're just doing it.
yeah,
Yeah,
because it's what's right, and then eventually,
yeah.
the more you do it, it just becomes who you are, right? So I guess for me, when I look at the Seven of Cups, it's kind of like choosing, like what are the right things to do, right? Because right now, I have like a lot of mixed emotions going on, and I am saying everything that I'm saying now, and how I read my cards and what they mean to me are still things that I have to work on, right? I have not mastered any of this, right? But when I look at the cards, that's the message I receive from them. I receive something from them, and it says, this is something that you need to look at, to work on, to think of, to share with others, right? So, when I look at the Seven of Cups, it's kind of like, what is the right thing to do? In any situation that's going to arise, what is the right thing to do? The right thing for me, the right thing for the other person, right? And sometimes that's not an easy decision to make all the time. It can be, right? It can be an easy decision, but if you work in places where there's a lot of stuff going on because of this election.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you are in the minority in that position. You have to like, you know, be cautious of the decisions that you make and still trying to do the right thing
Mm-hmm.
without negative things happening to you. Do you know what I mean?
Make,
Because
yeah, make the
Yeah,
best decision that you can.
yes,
That's it,
exactly. And that's
you know?
that's how I see it. Because sometimes, the Seven of Cups to me also can sometimes be you're like in fantasy land, right? Like,
Hmm.
mm-hmm.
ooh, everything is great, and I'm using my imagination, and I think that I can just go in and say whatever I want, and everybody is going to believe me, and they're going to agree with it. It's not true, right? That's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
how things work. So that's kind of what I take away from the card, you
yeah. I
know.
mean, and it's also, I think it's maybe less talked about, but for free, there's kind of an element of temptation there. That there are choices that you could make that might make your life easier or more fun in the short term, but in the long term could kind of have negative effects. It's almost like, to me, it's almost like a warning about being what is the word I'm looking for? Being a collaborator,
Mm.
where that in the short-term path, that could be a choice that would benefit you in a number of ways. And yet in the long term, because in the long term, this is all going to be in the past, and then it might turn out not so good for you if people know that you took that short-term path, even, just to make things better for yourself, or you thought it would make it better for yourself.
Yeah.
Because people were not happy with people who collaborated, historically. So,
Yeah. Very true. Very true. All right. Do we have one more?
Yes, we must
yes, we
disregard
do.
the wicked.
You
You're
were
muted,
muted.
Angie.
How, okay, I pulled a card for how to disregard the wicked, and I pulled the Three of Cups, which is these three people celebrating together. And this card, I've been pulling it constantly, which is it just is I find it so funny because that's in our little profile picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, what this means is when you can. And if you have a choice between engaging with someone who just wants to rile you up and piss you off and tell you all their good reasons for doing what they've done, that you just nope out of that situation and find the people who you can be your whole authentic self around, and where you feel supported. And um I'm not talking about only hang out with people who agree with you about everything,
Right.
but part of the reason, I believe part of the reason we are all in this big stupid pickle right now is that the people who thought it was a good idea don't think that the bad parts of what's going to happen are ever going to affect them or anyone they love in any way. And I really think forgiveness is important, but so are consequences. Allowing someone to experience the consequences of their own actions is really important. And you don't have to be the soft padding between them and the wall they're so intent on driving into as fast as they can. You need to, you deserve to be with people who you can be yourself with. And if you're not a part of any communities like that, sometimes those three people can just be me, myself, and I. Find ways to resource yourself, to source yourself, to understand that even if you're technically alone in this moment, you're not alone. There are people who feel the same way you do. There are people who want to know you the way that you really are. And it is okay to choose that over engaging in the general fuckery
Mm-hmm.
of things that a lot of people are just having a real good time stirring the pot right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I absolutely love that. I love that card. It's one of my favorite cards. And I think that we don't celebrate. We think of, when we hear the word celebration, it's like something you got to get out the good china. It's like the good china. Why don't we just use the good china? We like the good china. The good china is pretty. Let's just use it all day, every day. It's good. Let's use it. Same thing with celebration. Oh, got the guy's car tags today, and now he's going to have a car, and now I don't have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and take him to work on Monday. So I'm just like, that's a celebration right there.
heck yeah.
Has nothing to do with what's going on in the world. It's just we both adulted, and we did our thing, and celebrate. Celebrate whether you link arms and dance around the living room or have a drink or whatever, however you celebrate. I got the 10 of Pentacles and tens. We got 3 10s today. So I got the 10 of Pentacles. And of course, Pentacles are, resources, money, energy, time, whatever your resources are. And I said sharing about the Ten of Cups, but also sharing, I think the best way to disregard the wicked. And one of you said earlier, not to ignore what's going on. Disregarding the wicked is not to ignore what's going on in the world and not to get involved, not to not get involved. Get involved to the extent that you can. Everybody is, my friend Virginia is neck deep in Virginia politics because that's her thing. She was a political science major. She's always been that way. That's her line from Scandal, her hallelujah heroin and reason to breathe. And it's not mine, but I did go to a call last night, a Zoom call that had 20,000 people on it for Indivisible and how to do local groups and how to find people in your, how to organize, how to work to get local elections democratic. And, because you got a mayor, you got a city council, you got this and that, and that happens all over the country. Pueblo, and I'm sure Grand Junction, I don't know how much about, where are you, Queens? I don't know how far you feel. You probably feel closer to national things going on. I feel a bit removed in Pueblo, Colorado, but there's a lot of local stuff going on that I feel close to. And Colorado passed an amendment to the state constitution to codify access to abortion. And I'm very proud of that, so that's local. And I think the other way to disregard it is just keep doing your business. Keep doing your business. If that's going to be hard if you deal in actual widgets and stuff, but keep working to cultivate your prosperity. And prosperity doesn't necessarily mean money. However you can cultivate your relationships, however you can, again, going back to celebration, keep those ties. Those ties are going to be so important over the next years, months and years to the people that are very important to you and the people that get you and the people that understand you. We're going to need that. So that's what this says to me, is cultivate your resources and, grow them. And I think it's the intangible ones are going to be more important than the tangible ones, because we can all share and get along with less money. Somehow we can figure that out. But if we lose our people, that's going to be tough.
It's about pooling resources too, I think. Everybody doing their part, sharing, like sharing in your feelings, good and bad, in the Ten of Cups. This is sharing your resources, and it's not just money. A lot of it is time and attention and energy and action, planting seeds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I got the 9 of Wands. And so, in the picture, is this fairly young girl, probably in her 20s, and she's holding, a very long wand that's lit on the top, and her clothes are like tethered, and she looks like she has gone through a lot. And she's just kind of standing there, and then the other wands are placed out in front of her, almost like blocking her from, moving forward. So she's just kind of standing there. And I think with this idea of, disregard for the wicked, it's almost like it's saying to me, don't pay attention to all of the negative things that are going to be coming our way, and let that stress me out so much that I don't keep doing the things that I want to do to keep me going and to keep my spirits up. Don't allow the burden of everything that's going to come, the burdens that are going to come our way, bring me down to a point where I may want to stay there. And it's sort of like I may have to take a break for a minute, right, to gather my strength back up, which is what I think many of us are doing right now, right? We're taking a break. We're gathering our strength. We're gathering our resources. We're kind of making some plans. We're working it out. And then I'll be ready to continue fighting. I mean, it's not
Mm-hmm.
fighting like fist fighting, but really fighting for the life that I want for myself, that I want for my friends, my family, my grandchildren, when I eventually have them, for everybody. So yeah, I mean that's, I look
But
at her and I say, oh, that's how many of us are going to feel, and we could be feeling that way for quite some time, right? This is just the beginning. Like it hasn't even he hasn't even become president yet, and it's
right.
already starting. And I don't want to allow that to bring me down and keep me from doing the things that I want to do and doing those things to the fullest extent possible.
Yeah,
So
Knight of
So yeah.
Wands is, oh, go ahead, Linda.
I
I'm
was going to
sorry.
say two things came up. Two things came up for me when you were talking about that. One is for me, I mean, I guess it depends on what deck are you looking at, Kate?
The light seers.
Lightseer's deck. Okay, so for me, the Nine of Wands is kind of, and I've seen it kind of the way you talk about it in other decks, but for me, it's like kind of like the card of persistence. It's the
Mhm.
card of dotting your I's, crossing your T's. You're putting one foot in front of the other. You're going forward, and there may be some resistance there, but you're kind of going with falling back on protocol. Kind of protocol will get you, keep going, keep going, keep going. Eventually, step by step by step, you'll get there. That's kind of how I look at it. The other thing is, which I have now totally lost my train of thought. Oh, the disregard. There's a phrase called that says, what you resist persists. Now, and then we're all talking about resistance, 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 resistance. And of course, I'm not saying by that you flip around and just say, okay, well, if you can't beat them, join them. That's not it. The thing is, I feel like this is the time to focus our attention on what we want versus what we don't want. Okay. So it's a fine line. But just because you are screaming no at something, when you scream no at something, you get more of it because you're giving all of your attention to that. You're screaming no so hard. That's what keeps coming because that's where you're putting your attention. You can say, okay, I don't want that. And because I don't want that, I'm not even going to think about that. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do this because this is what I want. And I'm going to focus on what I want. I'm going to focus on what I want. I'm going to focus on, what I'm going to do to get that. And then this other thing, a lot of times just fades away because you have ceased to give your attention to it. Now, do you get the same result that you hope by screaming no at something if you just turn around and focus on what you want and scream yes at this? Oftentimes you do, because if you put your energy into saying it's a mindset thing, because you can say, I'm doing this because I don't want this, but I really do want this. So you start focusing on this, meaning I really do want more democratic government. I really do want secure voting rights. I really do want, equality for women and African Americans and everybody. I really do want trans people, so that's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want. Forget about what you don't want and do what you want. And I think to me, that's what the Nine of Wands is saying there. And that's how you disregard the wicked. by
Yeah, it's
focusing by focusing on the good, what you want to do good versus what you want to do against the wicked.
picking your battles, fighting
Yeah,
for what you want instead of
right,
always opposing what you don't want.
right,
It's
exactly.
it's
It's
a,
tricky, and a
it
lot of times
is.
it feels the same, but the
Hmm.
energy is different.
It is. And
Yeah,
it's like when you're meditating, if you sit there and think about stopping every thought that goes through your head, it's not going to work.
right,
It's in meditation, you turn your mind, the easiest, the first thing I learned to anchor my mind with was the breath. And that is just thinking, training my mind to think when I'm breathing in, I think I'm breathing in. And when I'm
Mm-hmm.
breathing out, I think I'm breathing out. And when other things start to filter in, because they always will,
Yeah.
I notice that. I'm gonna go, oops, I noticed that I'm doing that instead of I'm breathing in and I'm breathing out. And it's about bringing your attention back to what matters,
Yeah.
fighting
Yeah.
every single thing that you're against all the
And maybe you
time.
have
It's
to
like
sit down every
blowing.
morning. Maybe you have to sit down every morning and say, what am I going to say yes to today?
I have to do that. That's why I journal every day. That's why
Yeah.
I practice every day. If I don't, I get very off track. I get very
Mm-hmm.
slothful. I get very anxious. I feel tired and wired all at the same time.
I mean, even if it's something which you feel like it's silly, today I'm going to say yes to the cleaning the refrigerator.
Mhm.
And that's what you do, because that cleaning the refrigerator has now taken your mind away from what's going on in Washington, D.C., and you have a nice clean refrigerator and your food is organized and you feel happy. And
And
that
also
did the
the
trick today.
scale, the scale of what you can do is all you can really do is what you can do. You can't make anyone else do something else. You can't control everything. And
Mm-mm.
some days you'll be able to do a lot. Some days you'll do something that you feel makes a big impact. Most days it's just going to be getting up and like Linda said, asking, what can I say yes to today? What can I do today? What is worth my time? What is worth my energy? What's worth fighting for today?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And, like really asking those questions. So when I look at this card, and I see the girl standing there, I can see her asking those questions like, what am I going to say yes to, today? And I think
Yeah.
about my own personal experience, with my job and what I do. It's I have to, because in my position, there can be a lot of things that go on that can make me very like, oh, and I can. And there have been times where it has consumed my mind, and I come home and I am like so just aggravated. And I feel like her too, like just defeated. Like when you try so hard to get something and then it just like doesn't happen, you get like really, really frustrated and you feel defeated, and then I sit there and I say, why do I do this to myself? And then I see the star of hope and I say, you just got to keep going. You just got to get up. You go in tomorrow. You don't have to deal with it. Your focus is going to be on having fun with your kids, right? You're going to
Right.
focus on just having fun, on laughter, and just joking around with them, playing around with them, just feeling that young, vibrant energy and that joy that they have. Like they're just funny. If I really allow myself to just immerse myself in their energy, it's like really delightful,
Mm-hmm.
and I appreciate that I can do that sometimes. Like I appreciate that I can kind of make myself just focus on what's going to make me happy today and then just leave the rest because I don't have to attend to that other part at the moment, and I can take that moment to rest. And like you said, Linda, it, it's a balancing act, right? It
Mm-hmm.
really is a balancing act. And it's one that I've been trying to work on for
I
quite
mean, it
some
even
time now.
goes back. It even goes back to the Two of Pentacles. Because you're always kind of
Mhm.
juggling the decision of what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm standing on one foot. I'm trying to find balance. I don't know. How am I going to do it?
Yeah.
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 And the Nine of Wands too, is what was I gonna say? Oh my gosh. Like it's kind of like you're gonna be exhausted either way. Do you want to
Yeah.
exhaust yourself from really putting your heart into growing, protecting, fighting for what you want? Or do you want to exhaust yourself like blowing into a hurricane? Like and seeing if you can stop it, you know.
Yeah.
You
And
have
I think the more people that really kind of buckle down and pay attention to making their own little corner of the universe, wherever they are in their town and their township and their village and their city and their neighborhood, whatever you want to call it, making that the best place that they can be, that it can be for them and the people around them. I think if everybody were to do that, it'd be like these little Venn diagrams just coming and intercircling, intersecting, and then it would spread out over the whole place. You know, we think
Yeah.
that everything's coming from, the 600 people in Washington, D.C., but we, the people, the actual people, have power.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, the worst thing that all this has done is to make people feel like they're powerless, and we're not.
I think we should each talk about the overall lesson or impression we're walking away with from the readings we gave ourselves during
I'm
this
going to need to pull those
conversation.
cards out again because I have already forgotten what they were.
Okay, overall, what I'm getting from the reading from the cards that I pulled for this spread, with the reversed Four of Pentacles and the Ten of Wands, they are very much about my own action. Sometimes, when you come across someone who's trying to get their bearings, you have an urge to help, and sometimes that help isn't very helpful. So with the Four of Pentacles, I can see the inner work of just kind of nodding in agreement sometimes, which isn't my normal go-to. And with the Ten of Wands, like I said, it's about compassion for everyone who's suffering, even yourself, if you happen to be in a difficult situation. And with the Cups for the last two cards, about delighting in the virtuous and having disregard for the wicked, that is more about navigating by how I feel. I feel like my feelings will show me, my emotions will show me uh, where to go with those things. So overall,
Beautiful.
it's a lot about boundaries and about feeling your feelings, and yeah.
Oh, I like that very much. If I were to give I'm going to take it more as the cards giving me advice on just kind of how to work with everything that's going on. And I think the majority of it is going to be with starting with the death of just knowing that things are going to change and I have to come to terms with things changing. And that with that change, there's going to come times when I am going to feel like the Nine of Wands, right? And that I need to just hold on to this idea that I have it within me to keep moving in the positive direction that I want to move in. And that, I have to be, you know, maybe a little bit more conscious of the decisions that I'm going to make and the things that I'm going to do so that I am keeping myself more towards the positive things as opposed to getting caught up in more of the negative things or the things that can kind of like, mess with my head and kind of bring me down. So it's like really accepting change, knowing that I have the power to keep myself going in the direction that I want to. And while I'm doing that, also making sure that I am holding that space and compassion for others who maybe may not be experiencing it the way that I may be experiencing. Maybe they're experiencing it a bit more, they're grieving a little more and they're having a harder time. And I need to be able to hold space for them too and just kind of let them know that you're supported. We're here together. We're in this together. Nobody is doing this by themselves. We're in this together.
That's beautiful, Kate.
That is beautiful.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. I'm just to recap. I got the Two of Pentacles, Ten of Cups, the Star, and 10 of Pentacles. I think 2 10s is very interesting. These are all cards that I very rarely, if ever, draw for myself. But I overall for this, I feel like it was fairly optimistic, which may feel right now at the moment kind of dissonant because I don't think we're feeling terribly optimistic. It also feels very full, because 10s are the cards of kind of completion and fulfillment. And, but we start off with a decision. So I think we have to make those decisions as to how we're going to go forward in the next time. We can say 4 years. We can hope it's only 4 years. But we don't want to go forward feeling depleted. And I think that's part of this. Is like, we have to do what we need to do to fill our cups, to fill that 10 of cups and to grow our resources or hold on to our resources to cultivate those things, because that's where we're going to get our power and our ammunition. But the Star reminds us, that we have to take a breather sometimes. We have to take space to replenish that. And, I want to say also, when we talk about delighting in the virtuous, I think that is a way of doing that, is to encourage people to really look within themselves and do the right thing. Because I think most people here on the planet want to do the right thing. And sometimes, as misguided as it is, maybe they really thought they were doing the right thing for them and their families and their whatever. Can I agree with it? I can't agree with it, but I understand if that's really how you feel. If you really, really think that all these other people out there are a big threat to you, but I would just feel like it's up to us to encourage virtue and goodness over fear, because that's what the other side is all about. The other side is all about cultivating fear. Be afraid of those drag queens, be afraid of those gay people, be afraid of those trans people, be afraid of those Mexicans, be afraid of those whatever, because they're going to hurt you and they're going to take things away. They're not going to do that. Nobody is going to do that except you giving your power away to somebody else. And I think that's what this is really about.
Yep, that was beautiful, Linda. And
I love
yeah,
that.
so I'm really happy, Angie, that you came to us and was like, maybe we should do a episode for the
We needed
election.
to do it. Yeah, we needed to
Yeah,
do it.
and I think it was
we
a
all need a
wonderful.
vent. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a wonderful idea. Thank you very much for suggesting it and coming up with a beautiful spread too on how to work with what is going on right now. And I hope that our listeners, I hope they pulled some cards along with us, and I hope that they found something in the cards or something in what we said and shared that will maybe bring them a little more peace as they're moving forward. And maybe allow them to keep a little bit more hope as we move forward. So thank you to our listeners for stopping by, and
Thanks for being open-minded. And
Yes, indeed.
And, if you're listening and you want to hear more or talk more about us, you can find us on Instagram at tarot_trio, and come and leave a comment and let's talk about it. How are you feeling?
absolutely. All right, ladies. Well, you enjoy your evening, and I'll see you next week.